What's going on out there, everyone? Thomas Sochowicz here from Universal Solutions and Humans Unifying Global Solutions, also known as HUGS. And today we're super grateful for you guys tuning into our webinar on the life codes. And just a quick explanation of what we're going to be going over. The life codes are essentially a tool, a kind of software or
life hack.
life hack that we can use. It's been tested over time, so it's got a pretty proven track record. And so a lot of times today, as people are starting to wake up and wake up into this kind of new paradigm and tapping into their own spiritual guides and their purpose and just kind of this new world that everyone's waking up to, we find a lot of conditioning out there. And this conditioning through our education systems and the media and religions, all these different sorts of things have kind of made it so a lot of times we're like giving our power away, right? So trusting in gurus or gods or other different things that are outside of ourselves to
even the people around us.
Yeah, even our relationships, our family.
Whatever.
It's a huge one. And so what this tool does is it allows us to find that place within ourselves that we can tap into and trust as a guide for decision making. And then even beyond that, it allows us to tap into the energetic geometry, basically, that allows us to align with nature and harmonize back with the natural ebb and flow of life. And the reason that this works so well is because it is grounded and rooted in the way that nature works. So we see, if we look around us, nature thrives on biodiversity, right? If we look around, each and everything in nature has its own specific unique gift that it's giving to everything else, and it has its unique purpose as well, right? Like, I think a great example of this is, I found out once that there's an orchid, there may even be more than one orchid, but there's one orchid that there is one insect that basically the whole reason for this insect is to pollinate this orchid. And so we see like nature thriving on this biodiversity, and that orchid is so beautiful and has such this perfect niche, unique gift that it's giving to the world. And that's just the same principle that we can find with humanity. It's just that it's taken us a bit of time in our diversification as a species to figure out and tap back into the system so that we can harmonize with this. Specifically, a good reference point for this is like in humans we have the 4 blood types, right? There's 4 major blood types for humans, and in the life codes there's actually 4 major life codes. Now, just to be clear, this isn't saying that each of these life codes corresponds one-in-one to a blood type. So it's not like, oh, if you're this life code, then you're this blood type. But it's showing the coherence and similarities, basically, that take place within our psychological internal world and the actual biological world.
Right. Yeah, and just to touch a little bit more on like the conditioning, like what's really happening and what's been happening over the course of history with humanity's consciousness and its evolution. We have been giving our power away because we don't understand our motivations or our purpose on this life. So, we used to give our power away, and some still do, to like, gods and external beings and things like that, and to governments. And like over the course of history, like what's really happened is that like, we are not basing our decisions off of our true nature. So we are giving away our power through being conditioned by others, because they try to tell us, oh, no, you should do this and you should do that. And like, society and the television and everything is telling you what you should do. So what happens is when the energy comes in and you're like about to make a decision, you go into, rather than your like initial response and natural reaction, you go into a space of like, oh, I need to what are they going to think? What are they going to say? You start going into this whole like conditioning process. And when that happens, your initial responses, or what you felt you should have responded to, is overridden, and then you start morphing your feelings and everything associated with what you initially thought into something else. So then you start withdrawing. There's like disassociation. In human design, they call it like homogenized, because you're kind of being like sculpted, and everything that's real about you is kind of being just like taken off. So we want to tap you back into being able to be in your highest nature, because when you do that, you're making the best decisions for yourself as well as for all of those around you. And this, really is like the core issue of what's going on the planet, is that a lot of us are not tapped into our higher knowing. We're walking around pretending that we're certain, but we like nobody really knows, so it's like, what are we going to do? And, if we want to look a little bit more into the history, if you just take 500 years ago, for example, when Copernicus, made a calculation that maybe the Earth was not the center of the universe, and there's like this huge, traumatizing event for humanity, feeling that we're purposeless, flying on a rock, and everyone's trying to objectify everything. So only what you can measure with your five senses is real, and with that, it's everybody's trying to like condition each other. It's like, no, I know, it's like just crazy. And then with Freud, displacing the self and our power of ourself into our subconscious, so we've been going through this whole process of going, wait, well, what's really making our decisions? What's making our decisions? Right now, what we can at least know is that it's mostly coming from conditioning and societal program. You add in GMOs and vaccines and, all the other crap, and you've got a situation where your brain that has the pineal gland is calcified and not functioning properly, and you're making decisions using that with all your conditioning. So it's no wonder that the world is kind of like in a situation. We're disconnected from source, which really means we're disconnected from like our source, like our internal being who knows, like, because we're picking up all the information at all times, so normally the brain, when we use the brain, right, the mind brain here, to make decision, it automatically creates a polarity or duality of why you should or shouldn't do things. And when it has a calcified pineal gland, it's not functioning correctly, and it's dictating to you what story you need to know and like what's important, because it is receiving all information. It's storing what is not important into the gray matter, but you are only like picking up in perception, like into consciousness, like what the brain, based on conditioning and programming, is telling you should know. But really, your being knows everything, and like we all know that we're multidimensional, so we are picking up information, energy from like all of the planes, and the mind is not the place where we go to ask like, hey, what's going on? It's actually in the form, in the body. And the life codes that we're talking about today are how to tap into that, because really what's happening on the planet with each one of us, what we need to tap into our source, is really understanding how we process energy as an individual, and then also like how we transmit it. And that's what we're doing. We are energy transmitters and receivers, and how do we do that in what we are meant to do, instead of doing it based on a cookie cutter like conditioning programming thing.
Exactly. And just one more quick reference to when we say like tap into the form, I want you guys to think about for a second, right? Like right now, as you're watching this webinar, as I'm telling you this webinar, there's an intelligence that is inside of our body that's making our heart beat, the neurons are firing, the food's digesting, all these different things are taking place without us thinking about it, right? There's activity going on, and all that stuff is running on like perfect timing, or else we would die if the heart didn't run on this like perfect intelligence. Then we would just collapse. The life codes, this information allows us to tap back into that intelligence to bring into our daily decision making, our daily life. That's how powerful this information is.
Yeah, Exactly. So, just one more thing to add on to that too, because with all of the revelations and like scientific breakthroughs, and if you look at the evolution of consciousness throughout humanity's history, what has been happening is like a tear in the dimensions between like the subjective or like the spiritual slash like quantum, feeling realm, and then the objective, like, oh no, if I can't see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, whatever, then like it doesn't exist. So there's been like this tear, and that also correlates to like, because we're living in a fractal, so it correlates to like our existence as a whole. We've put this objective thing in charge, and everything else that like we can't identify. If we can't identify, then we can't like listen to it. So we're really basically going to be seaming back together the reality, because everything is a spectrum. It's not like this is this plane and then that plane. It's like a spectrum. So this is really what's going to be helping to do that, which will heal humanity and the earth.
Yeah, and the other beautiful thing is this information is like really practical too. Once you start to incorporate it, like Danny was talking about, touching it, smelling it, hearing it, or whatever, because we're tapping back into the form, you're going to be able to test this within yourself. You're going to be able to feel these sensations and tap into these places. So you're going to be able to verify this within yourself as you're growing and incorporating this information more. So you can just, test it for yourself as you learn, which is a really beautiful thing too.
Yeah. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, the jovianarchive.com. If you can put that on there first. Yeah, so basically this is where you want to go to get your life code, and there's 4 specific life codes. What you do, go to jovianarchive.com, go to get your free chart, and you need to put in your accurate birth date and time, as well as the location. And then you get chart, and then it will say type. So wherever it says type, that's the specific life code that you are. And that is an indication of how you process and reorder energy in your life. So yeah, if you guys want to go ahead and do that now. And then also, because Jovian Archive talks about the human design system, and also the terms life codes really comes from Richard Rudd, who developed the gene key system, but they are kind of one and the same. The life codes are the same as the type, just different words. So if we want to talk about the first one, we can go to the first slide. Okay, so now these aren't in any specific order, but we're first going to speak about the proactive life code, or the manifester. Now, as you can see in this picture, the pyramids, traditionally the proactive life code, were the kings or high priestesses. They were the ones that established laws in all spiritual and material hierarchies, basically to avoid being challenged or controlled, because they are the yang-yang principle, or the active male principle, and they are very proactive in their life. So if we look at the next slide, the American Revolution slide, which...
So the reason I put this slide up here is because the basically the time period, the major time period of the proactive life code or manifestor being ended around 1781, which was the time of the American Revolution. And this is really interesting to take note of, because a lot of the manifestor energy, and the reason why it's it's pyramidal, and it's you'll see it as we talk about it a little bit more, but it's a very go-getter kind of proactive creative energy, and this energy was very much so needed as humanity really began to develop its civilizations and expand really around the world in different ways. The manifestor was really essential to this. And then we have this shift going on in 1781 as there was the American Revolution, which is interesting because America, as it started to form, we see this mixture, right, of all of these different races and different cultures and all these different things. And this is really when the responsive life code, or the generator, has now began to take over. And so it's just a lot of synchronicities there with moving from this super kind of proactive energy to more of kind of a collective based energy, because that's really what we're seeing birthing now, is a more collective based intelligence, which is why this energy of tapping into the form consciousness is really starting to come out and be disseminated right now.
Well, and it's also really interesting that 1781 with this American Revolution and this was also when Uranus was discovered. So if we know astrology and we know how the planetary aspects indicate to us the fractal energy that's happening in the macrocosm as well as the micro, we know that before then Saturn was the one that was like the outer limit, the boundary, and it was also very male, death, time, like all these very structure. Like super like. And Uranus comes in, and Uranus is all about liberation and freedom and rebelling and breaking out of this whole like Saturn energy.
Well, and that's when we went from 7-centered to 9-centered.
Yeah, so when you see on your chart the body graph, when you go to Jovian Archive and you see the pyramid and it's got the body in it, it has all the little shapes, those are the centers, which kind of correlate to the chakra centers, but they're called energy centers, and there's 9 of them. So as we've kind of been discovering these other planets that are in our solar system, they have been like activating aspects of ourselves, and we're learning to tap into that because we are evolving. So I just wanted to add that in. That's pretty interesting with the slide you put there. So you can go to the next one. Yeah, so moving on back to the manifestor or the proactive life code, their aura or their energy, the way that they process is moving out from the inside. So you see this guy here with the energy coming out of his chest. Their job is to initiate from the inside to out, okay? So they're initiating original energy. The proactive life code energy, if you have that type that says manifestor, they're the pure doers, okay? They impact what it's open to. So if whatever you're open to, you're going to impact it and make an impression on it. Now we see this next slide here to give us more information on it, is that the manifestor sees the world from a distance. Then they join the world in a single point to inform and leave an impression for other people and to respond to your move with.
Yeah, oftentimes from manifestors, you'll hear when they talk about how they are experiencing things internally and processing things internally, they'll talk about it as if like they're kind of like sitting back in this seat, kind of like this guy's meditating, and all of a sudden there's these massive like ideas and influxes of things like whooshing past them, like they're like, whoa, like the like the energy just like flies past their point of observance within themselves. And so then this mirrors again in the way that they experience the world too, because they're always looking at how they impact others, because their aura is an impactful aura.
Right. And the proactive life code, what they are aiming to get in life is peacefulness. So you see this guy meditating, and that's what they get when if you're a manifestor, if you are initiating into the world and acting from a place that's in coherence with the way you order energy, which is to initiate, you get peacefulness. Okay. So the next slide we have here, this is also another kind of symbolic statement for the manifestor, especially for children, manifestor children. They have this ability to just go out and initiate and just start doing things even at a very young age that it can scare their parents. And the kid doesn't really understand, but they are pure energy beings, and they're here to do what they want to do. especially as like children, though, they need to ask for permission. As an adult, the manifestor needs to just inform, and communicate the energy.
Yeah, I've heard some parents of manifestors say that a really great way, because this is where a lot of this conditioning develops, right? Is because parents, our parents, or we as parents, when we have a child that is a manifestor, there's this kind of sort of like a fear that'll come in around the child, so we will try and control them too much, or you may have been really tried to be controlled because of this powerful energy. And so what I've heard parents of manifestors say is a great way to deal with this is basically giving them a container. So like basically setting a boundary and being like, okay, you can do whatever you want, create whatever you want within this prescribed container. And so that's a kind of a good medium, because of course you don't want to just let a small child just do whatever they want and be running across the street or whatever. But yeah, giving them like a framework and a boundary, and then just letting them go.
Yeah, and it's really important too for like all children, but especially manifestors too, that they're encouraged to communicate. They're encouraged to inform and be courteous. That's like a really big thing, and to teach them at a young age how they're impacting others, but not to discourage or condition them. If they're trying to go out into the world and do things, like encourage them to do that.
Exactly.
Because I've seen manifestor adults who have had that conditioned right out of them, and they can't move. They're like
Frozen.
They can't get a job. They can't do anything. They can't they're like, because they're so just like
disempowered.
Yeah, disempowered and conditioned that anything they do is just people start to get angry with them. But yeah, so basically, let's keep talking about the manifestor here. We see this guy climbing up the stairs. They need to really go out and take action, because what happens with the manifestor when they're doing what they want, when they're initiating and informing others, even if they don't inform others, which they should, but if they don't, still the reality around them starts to morph and change as they start to take action. So that's why this energy being, it's really important for them to take the action based on, their internal energy. Whatever they're feeling is coming up, and they need to inform before they act. But then once they start acting and taking the steps, the reality starts to form, just as this guy is drawing the stairs. Now, what happens when a manifestor does not inform others? Because if you can imagine a pure energy being just going out into the world, we all know somebody like this. They're about 8% of humanity. But if they start going out into the world and we see what they're doing, we're like, wow, that's really awesome. They're like making all these huge things happen. And if we start to get involved with them in any way, we realize pretty quickly that they are so powerful. And we start to distrust them if they don't inform us before they act. If it's impacting us, okay? The manifestor needs to inform whoever they're going to impact. And if they don't, people are scared. Like, people are really scared of them because it's a trust thing. We're not sure if they're going to take us into consideration. And like for myself and Tom, we're both generators, and if we're around manifestors that aren't informing us, for one, we don't get to respond, which we need a space to respond in. But we start to feel like we can't trust the person. So a good way for manifestors to continue what they're doing and reach peacefulness is to inform others. If they are receiving or meeting resistance, it's because they're not, either taking action or being courteous and informing.
And this can actually come into play in just simple things too. I've heard from about couples where one is a manifestor and one's a generator or a projector, and it can be just like going to the store. Like, hey honey, I'm going to grab this. Even those little bits of informing can help to prevent arguments or confusion or anything really.
Right. Or, hey, I'm leaving the room. Or, hey, I'm not going to have access to a phone for 2 days. Or whatever it is, it just puts the other person at ease. If you are a manifestor, you need to realize how powerful you are. And just be courteous of others because they can become like afraid. Also, sometimes people are jealous too. So, something to be aware of. But don't be afraid of continuing to take your actions as long as you inform before you act those that you impact, and as long as you're taking the actions based on your own internal authority, you're on the right path. Now, you can go to the next one. So thank you. It's like you want to be courteous. Using your manners is a really easy way to put others at ease. If you yourself are angry or people around you are angry, just start using more courtesy. Just start using more manners and respect, because that's what it shows the other people, is that you do respect them. And that's a good way. If you're finding yourself angry or somebody else angry, you need to start communicating more about what you're doing. Even things that may seem like insignificant, like I'm leaving the room. Especially if people are angry and you start to communicate more, you'll see that kind of will dissipate, because even though you're a manifestor, you're a pure energy being, you can go out and do things. You appear to be independent, although you are interdependent as well. Ideally, you want to have people around you that trust you so that they can help you with whatever your vision is. So here's another picture. Oh, we didn't go through that. Oh, that's okay. Well, let me just talk a little bit more about this. The manifestor has to make things happen. Like they don't get to just sit and wait to respond, or they literally have to take the actions to make it happen. And if they're feeling stuck, or if you're feeling like angry or whatever it is, go somewhere by yourself, get out of other people's auras, tap into your authority, which
nature in particular is great.
Yeah.
Somewhere peaceful,
Mm-hmm. And it is actually best for you to make decisions outside of other people's auras, because people will try to condition you and things like that. But it's like encoded in your genetics that you really need to make things happen and take those steps. So now you are also like the most independent, but this can be your undoing. So you have the ability to like go out and like manifest and do these things. But you'll realize quickly that people will withdraw their support of you if you're not informing them and if you're not being courteous. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to ask permission, because you don't. It just means that you need to communicate in a way that says, hey, I'm about to do this. Do you guys want to join me or not? And you'll be surprised. Like, a lot of times you might feel that you're afraid that they're going to say no, which is like the worst thing a manifestor can hear. But if you're giving them an opportunity to say like yes or no, or whatever, you're giving them a space to respond in, you'll find out people will actually support you more than you think. And it's really about like finding your biggest passion, because the manifestor, the energy comes from within, and it's to come out. So it's really like finding your biggest passion, finding that creative energy, and like really tapping into that, your visions, all of that mission, so that you can inform others. Like, they're not going to do it for you. Like, you have to figure out your vision, your passions, so that you can inform others about it, and they go, oh yeah, I want to do that too. That's awesome. I'm a generator. I'm not supposed to, necessarily try to initiate or manifest things, because that's entering into the energy signature at the wrong angle. Like, the geometry of the timeline that you're going on, because it's based on a decision and how you're acting. If I enter it into a place from initiation, I get frustrated because I'm a generator. If the manifestor enters into the geometry of the situation, either from conditioning, or several ways. But if they're not following their authority and their type and their strategy, to inform and to be courteous and whatever the authority is, if they're not doing that, they get angry. So that's a good way to know if you're like on the right path with your life code. Like, are you getting angry? Are you meeting resistance? Are people mad at you? Like, if they're mad at you, like, you need to communicate, and it's hard sometimes, and it goes against your nature, especially from that slide of the child with the leash. You're kind of probably always been like, oh, I don't want to inform people because they're just going to tell me no. But you'll realize that people have like such high respect for you when you start to communicate. They trust you. They speak well on your behalf, and like you start to develop almost like an army of like support around you. So that's really important. So yeah, if we can go back to that other slide, the thank you slide. Also with like the courtesy is to tell the truth. Okay, so the manifestor really needs to, in his courtesy, tell the truth, and it's informing anyone who you're going to impact and stopping the energy of provoking others. Okay, so if you're provoking anger or resentment from others, you know that you're not in the right timeline. Now, we see this picture of the crowd here. The manifestor's job is to not overlook anyone who is going to be affected. So if you're a manifestor and you're about to make some decisions, let's say that you're like, working with your team or whatever, it's your job to really take a look at who's going to be affected to inform them. And when this happens, you're able to provide like a sense of inclusion for others. So it's really important as well. So the people around you want to be respected, and they also want to be included. And the more that you can try to include people, the better. And this is going to eliminate the illusion of their separateness. Like, yes, you're able to be independent, okay, but you also want to be interdependent, because the people around you are going to really build your vision. So you create the vision, you hold it, you inform through courtesy, and the other people around you are going to be like, yeah, I want to do this, or no. But the people that say yeah, like, they're going to really help you make it.
Exactly. And those people that are around you are, because you have this ability of the creative vision and a lot of ideas and this powerful force, they're going to want to support you, because they know, they inherently feel that you're like like a knife or like an arrow, like cutting through blockages and things that are in the way. And if they feel included, they know, and they'll stand behind you. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like you said, like you saw that the pyramid shape, they'll be the rest of that energy helping you to create and to manifest. They just want to feel included in what's going on.
Right. Yeah, so as a manifestor, when you're including others, you're empowering them, which is really big. So because the manifestor can come in and like have all this energy, and through inclusion really empowering others. So whatever you want, you need to go for it. Make sure that you include others at the same time, and knowing that you're an unstoppable force and no one controls you. Okay? Also, nothing is going to come to you, so you have to go out and get it. Now, naturally, and the way that the genetics work with your aura, it doesn't communicate as much as other auras. So a lot of times people really just don't know what to think about you. Okay, people, and this also leads to the like mistrust or distrust, because your aura doesn't actually communicate as much. And this is what causes people to fear you or try to control you. Now, it's great, too, if people around you understand this system. Like, all my manifestor friends, I know. I'm like, look, you're empowered. Just tell me what you're doing. Just tell me what's going on. And I'm going to support you if I like what you're doing. But, yeah, so as long as they show me respect, I'm, like, totally, like, supportive, and I love to work with them. Yeah, do you have anything else to say about like the manifestor proactive life code?
I think it just really quick, I wanted to touch on, we were saying how it's really important for the manifestor, especially, to be tapped into the creative passion that they have, right? Because that's their purpose here. That's their lifeblood, is to tap into that. And the other beautiful thing about this system, and also the soul mapping, which we'll kind of get into, in the next webinar, we figured out a way to really help identify specifically and tap people into what that passion might be, or what the specific purpose might be. If you're looking at your human design chart in tandem with the astrology that's going on, the gene keys, we can really help tap you into the specific areas where you might find that creative energy and that passion to tap into.
Right, and these life codes are like the outside of the onion. This is like the really macro, like, energy that you're dealing with, but there's so many layers, within human design, astrology, gene keys, all these systems. But this is the surface level, and this is where we need to start. It's like super important. It's like you really need to tap into how your energy works, and if you know how it works, you can get on the right timeline and start really making changes in your life. So let's talk about the next one. So we're going to talk about the responsive life code. And the responsive life code is also known as the generator. The way that the generator's aura or energy body works is that they do not push things away. So as we just saw with the manifestor, who it's almost like repelling and pushing things away. It's coming from the inside out. They have the ability to remove obstacles. The generators, we do not push things away. We envelop, and we also have a very large aura. So we take in everything. It doesn't mean that there's any discernment there either. It's like all the energy comes in, and it integrates with us. And it's also like we have this immense life force because of it. Now, we are the yin force, and we do need to learn to say no and continue with our stamina and things like that, because the energy is coming in so fast. What we get out of life, just like the manifestor gets peacefulness, the generator, when they are acting from the place of their energy body's life code, they get satisfaction. And what's really important for us, because we are like we're like the creative energy beings of the world that are doing a lot of work. Like, we're the busy bees.
The red, and like the red blood cells of the body, basically. Yeah. We're the living system that's like really making everything happen and ensuring that everything keeps running and going properly.
Yeah. So it's really important because of that fact that we actually do things that we enjoy doing. Okay, because we have that ability to work and really do like mundane, like monotonous things. We really need to be able to do a lot of stuff that we actually enjoy, and that's probably one of the most important things for a generator, is finding things, responding to energies that they know they will like. So, and because of that, too, we want to make sure that our energy is not getting used up by other people. Generators are the largest percentage of the life code types. Okay, so we're about 67 to 70%. So there's a lot of us generators in the world right now that are, working in jobs that they hate, doing things that are not satisfying. Okay, now when we continue doing things that we're not satisfied with, the generator gets frustrated. Okay, the manifestor gets angry because they feel controlled. The generator feels frustrated because they're not getting satisfied, or they're not enjoying what they're doing. Okay, and this is why we our energy, because we take everything in, we actually don't need to go out and do things. Everything comes to us. And that means that, yeah, we need to go do things, but really what's happening is the energetic decision-making part of this is that we need to respond, okay? The manifestor's energy comes from the inside and goes out, and they are initiating, and the generator needs to respond because all the energy just comes through them. And it's coming from the defined sacral center. So
Sorry about the noise in the background. It's Independence Day weekend here.
Costa Rica. Yeah, so yeah, basically what makes a generator is the defined sacral center, and this is, you know, a part of the being, and you can see on the chart there's all those squares and triangles. The sacral is the red square right above the root, so it's the second one. And because of this sacral center, it's like pumping this energy through. It's the life force. You know, we are like a magnet, and we can wait and see what comes to us. And it's like, I'm a generator, and it took me a little while to like understand this. I'm conditioned, so are most generators conditioned to be like, oh, we need to go out and like initiate, and we need to do all these things, but really we actually need to wait to respond, and have a more relaxed attitude towards life.
Exactly. That's why. So I put this this picture of Magneto here because, you know, we can look at the proactive life code kind of really as like the electrical force in the universe, and where the generator is more like the magnetic force. That's like the yin and the yang. And so we're really like, you know, kind of like the Buddha that sits, and we concentrate on what it is that we want, where we want to put our energy, and what we want to create in our life, and then we respond. We wait until, you know, someone calls, there's an ad, somebody comes to our door and offers something for us, and then we tap into our body, into that sacral center, and we can feel, it either feels like a definite yes, like an excitement. We'll feel like a good feeling in that sacral center, or we'll feel like a definite that's not for me. And that's how we can begin to tap into the generator decision making. And also with the frustration too, I just want to add, we were talking before about how it's really important for us generators to align with those things that we're really into, right? And the way that we know if we're not in alignment with those things is that we can feel it in that sacral center. So we'll be like doing something, you know, and it's just this feeling of like kind of like ickiness down there in the sacral center, where you're like, it's just like a no, this isn't for me. Like, why am I doing this right now? Mm-hmm. And this is really common nowadays because there's so much conditioning in society with a lot of the kind of typical 9-to-5 jobs and different stuff that's going on in the world out there. So a lot of people are just out there doing things because they feel that they have to, and this creates like an energetic pollution on the planet. Really, it's like all these people, they're just constantly, quote unquote, basically slaving away at these things, emanating this energy from their powerful motors of like, I don't want to be doing this, you know. And so this energy is radiating out around the planet right now, creating a lot of the distortions that we have. I mean, think about 70% of the people on the planet, and a good percentage of them aren't emanating positivity and creative life force energy. So
right, and that's, you know, the defined sacral, that red, if you have the red square.
I can pull that up really quick.
Yeah, so the second one from the bottom in the middle is the sacral, that square. And so yeah, what you were saying, like if it's defined
right there,
if it's colored in, it means that it's like part of it's transmitting energy out as well. So that's what you're saying. Like, if people aren't listening to that, because that's the part of the body, if you're a generator, that is the like highest self. And this is what part of the body is collecting all the information. Remember, I was talking about how the mind only collects a little, like gives you just a little bit. Well, the sacral, if you're a generator, this is where you can trust. This is where you know, like, okay, this is my decision making. And there are different types of generators as well, like that have different authorities. Some of them are emotional generators, where they have to go through their emotions, but they all have the defined sacral. That's what makes a responsive life code, because that sacral center is what's like pulling everything to you, because you're like a magnet, but it's also what you're putting out, which is your response to the universe. And if you're not responding correctly to how your life code is, and with your authority, which that will be another webinar where we go through the authorities, because they're very important. But if you're not responding, like right now, if all you know is, okay, I'm a generator and I just need to respond, just wait and respond, okay? Just start doing that. And if you don't, and a lot of people that aren't doing it, it's weakening their health. And this is happening for all the life codes. If they are not responding, well, for generators responding, for manifestors, if they're not initiating, projectors and reflectors, we'll get into those in a minute. But if they're not, taking the steps based on their life code and their type, then their physical body is taking a hit.
Exactly, because what this is essentially saying, what this response and this energy within the body is saying, is does the collective, right? Because we're tapping into the whole organism of the planet and the universe through these centers. Does the collective have energy to give to this thing or not? That's essentially what we're tapping into. On a personal level, it's does my body, does my being have energy to give to this thing or not? And our body, that center taps into the rest of the organs and the glands and things within the body, and that in turn is tapped into the whole collective, and it goes, okay, is this right for this being? Yes or no? That's basically what it's saying.
Well, a lot of us, we're all still doing it and trying to get over the conditioning, but all those colored in centers when you walk into a room are what you're bringing and like transmitting, right? So it matches up with somebody else's energy. Well, it doesn't matter if it matches or not, but whenever you get inside someone else's like aura, which is like an extension of their bodies and how they are on all these different planes, you can be coming from conditioning. The white spots in your chart are where you're experiencing, and it's also where you're getting conditioning that you may or may not want. Conditioning's not bad, because we're learning different experiences when somebody else comes in front of us and they have a defined center, a colored in center, where ours is white. They have a tendency to condition us, but we're also experiencing how they operate from that center. So it's valuable. But once we leave their side and we go, our separate ways, and if we start to try to make decisions, oh yeah, I remember I was with that person and they were like, this is how they process energy, and they, they're all in the head center, whatever it is, and then we start, that's conditioning. Okay, so we're tapping in back to what is defined, in your chart, what's consistent, and how your being wants to operate, so that we're not coming from this conditioning. So as a generator, you need to let life come to you, okay, and let yourself wait and then respond, have a more relaxed, attitude and energy towards life.
Yeah, I think a really cool story that I heard to just illustrate how this works, how powerful this information can be. Richard Rudd, who coined the term the life codes, essentially when he discovered human design, apparently he took something like 3 years basically, and he went and grabbed all this information and other stuff and just got really, really deep into it. And he basically cut himself off from everything. It was just him in this little house. He pretty much only saw, I think he saw maybe like a cleaning lady or somebody pretty much for this period, and decided that he was going to tap into this response. And then out of the blue, I think it was one day somebody showed up, and this was like a journalist, and they were like, "Oh, what do you got going on here?" Is like looking around the house at all these things tacked up all over the walls about all this information. And Richard Rudd told him what he was doing, and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to feature you, in my article about what you're doing." This guy just showed up out of nowhere, and his response was like, "It was like, yes, okay, now's the time," and that catapulted his whole career. So, just an example to show how that responsive thing can really tap us into where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and the frustration really comes from, because the sacral center, as generators, we are just trying to find our flow, because the sacral center is pushing out like energy currents. And that's what some of the other beings, some of the other life codes ride on, is those energy currents that we're pushing out. So it is really powerful, but frustration does come if we're not putting out those energy currents from what our being is telling us that, we really need to do. And that way we can allow our dreams to unfold as life comes to us. Okay, so it's kind of a relief too. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of tricky, and I have to like stop myself sometimes from like, oh, maybe I should go do this. No, wait, no. But it's great when I'm actually like in a response.
In the flow.
You're like in your flow, and you're more relaxed, and so yeah. Now there is a subtype. This is the only category that has a subtype, by the way. But there's another type called a manifesting generator. They're still a generator. Tom's a manifesting generator. I'm a pure generator. And this picture is really funny.
Oh yeah. So the reason I put this picture up is because the idea of the manifesting generator, right? Well, the generator, the standard generator is just trying to tap into the flow, right? This is like the water, right? We had that picture of all the rivers coming together because it's integrating all these energies and tapping into this responsive flow in life, right? Well, the manifesting generator is still tapping into that flow, but they also have the manifester energy, right? Which has to do with the active throw, and it's this proactive type of energy, but it's done within the flow. And what that means is like, so once manifesting generators have responded, so they're acting from response primarily and initially, like, somebody offers me this job in this position, this company, and I tap in, I'm like, that feels good. And then from there, I can go out and activate. So that's why this guy is like...
Well, it's kind of funny, too, because, like, if you think of the generators, the manifesting generator and the regular generator, like, going into a river, right? And we're trying to go, like, across the river. Let's say that's the goal. And, like, the regular generator would be, like, in a tube, like, floating, like, oh, here we go, and, like, going around, like, oh, yeah, this is great, and, but, like, still going and, like, responding, like, oh, wait, there's a rock over there, I need to, like, paddle over here, or whatever. I like the manifesting generator is just going, they have one of these, like, I don't even know what they're called, but, like, these things that, like, fly you into the air. Right. And they can just go around it, so they can, speed forward. And we're going to talk about that because it's almost like the manifesting generators are like a manifester, but with a generator type of strategy, which is to respond.
Exactly.
Okay? So if we look at this first slide here, as you might be able to conclude, that manifesting generators really need to have patience, okay? Because they are powerful, they have kind of a little bit of that manifesting energy, but they're also generators. They need to learn to hold themselves back in life. And it doesn't mean like holding themselves back as in like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but it's almost like holding back the energy until they have something really good to respond to let all that energy just like go forward. That's really a lot about timing. So manifesting generators, it's all about timing. And if they are impatient, okay, they start to push people away. And if they're pushing people away out of impatience, then they're not going to be getting a lot done. People aren't going to want to be around them. So it's kind of an ironic dilemma that the manifesting generator has. They're some of the most powerful and able to. We're all able and powerful, but they are really able to get a lot of stuff done quickly if they use their energy correctly, and they have that potential of just really making stuff happen. But if they're pushing people away, out of impatience and rushing, they have frustration, but it's mixed with anger, just like the manifester has anger. Um, so if you're a manifesting generator and you're getting angry and impatient and frustrated, you know that the timing that you have is not coming from response. So manifesting generators need to be a generator first, okay? It's through response that they're able to manifest. But if they start trying to just go out and initiate, they're still going to get the anger and frustration. And that's why this guy punching the computer is kind of symbolic of the way a manifesting generator would feel when they feel people are getting in their way, okay? Because they want to go fast. They're they've got those little water jet packs on, and the person in the tube is just getting in their way. So they're frustrated, and so it's something that the manifesting generator needs to work on. Is really kind of just condensing that and holding that energy and waiting to respond with something that's really good for them. Don't get impatient. The longer you can kind of wait based on waiting to respond and then going to respond, it's going to be really awesome. And that's how you're going to catapult the energy that you're working with, which is the goal. So they have a great enthusiasm for life.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, when you do tap into this flow as a manifesting generator, well, even beforehand, there's this energy when it's combined, the throat energy, which we'll talk about, combined with the generator energy and the sacral, is so powerful. There's so much energy for creation and for, just like she said, an enthusiasm for life, because with all this creative energy and the sacral creative energy, it's just almost overwhelming, which is why, like we had in the last slide, it can be so powerfully frustrating the other way when we're not in alignment, right? And really the manifesting generator, we have kind of the least limitations of all of the types and the life codes. We have the power to get things done, but having those least limitations comes with a little bit of a shadow too, where it can be really hard to tap into the flow, because it can be a kind of confusing aura type at times, having that kind of split. It's almost like having a split personality a little bit. It's you have this part of you that really wants to go out and create and be proactive, but we really have to give over the decision-making aspect to the flow, right? Because otherwise, like the guy in the thing, he's just bumping into and crashing into the people in the little life rafts, and that doesn't work for anyone, right? And when we get into that flow, when we can hold ourselves back and be patient until the right moment to put that energy forth, then we have basically the ability to go on creating almost endlessly. And yeah, that's the thing. That's why this aura type can be really powerful. It just takes a little bit more tuning and refinement to really get into the flow a lot of times with this aura type.
Yeah, it's waiting for the magical moment.
Exactly.
So okay, now I'm going to respond and put all this energy that I have and just go. And then the generator aspect of the manifesting generator has the ability to stay because the generator is like, we're the busy bees, we're the, ones that can do all these like tedious like little things, and we're here to create living systems, the generators. Okay, so we're here to build like living systems. And so waiting for the magical moment is really, really key for the manifesting generator. Not to be proactive. Do not be proactive. Don't think because it says manifesting generator, cool, I can just go out and do whatever I want. Well, I mean, you can do that, but you're going to learn the hard way that people around you are going to be put off. They're going to feel your impatience. They're not going to like it. It doesn't feel good. You're just going to be repelling, because that's also the shadow of the manifestor's aura, or in their life code, is repelling, because it's pushing out. So it's good for like removing obstacles and things like that, and it's really important. But if it's done in a way where you're like affecting others negatively to like try to like manifest, it's just not, you're not gonna have a good time.
The manifesting generator aura takes a lot of trial and error to especially initially, just to feel out like and get a good handle on, okay, where and how can I respond?
Experiment.
Experiment with it a lot, and you'll eventually tap into your flow for sure.
Well, and like, okay, so I'm a generator. For me, like, and my authority is my sacral. We'll get into this later, but basically for me, it's like, pretty much in the moment, in the flow, and it makes a sound. Like my sacral makes a sound. It's like, yeah, or it doesn't feel good. So it's like I'm actually starting to listen to that. Where like Tom, he's a manifesting generator. So with a manifesting generator, because they're like in the jetpack, right? They're like, I'm gonna go over here and see if this is the way. Oh wait, I'm in the middle of going there and that's not the way. Okay, I'm gonna go this way. So then they like, in the middle of their action, which is based on response, they can decide like, or yeah, this way, So it's actually response through like doing, kind of, So you may change your position based on, what you feel while you're doing it, and that's okay. So you can experiment with it as you go.
Think about that guy in the jetpack, like maybe going down a river or something, right? And at certain points of the river, everyone seems to be in the right place in the river, and the rocks and the bends in the river in the right place. So then you can like really like go, and you're just really flowing forward. But then all of a sudden, you're noticing some people and some rocks are approaching, so you could kind of like pull back and keep a more steady, just like a steady position, and then feeling it out. So it's very, very much like surfing or something too,
Well, and it's interesting because, and we're good examples here because we experience it all the time. Like I'm a generator. I'm a pure generator. So for me, I like to, and I think Richard Rudd was talking about like the tortoise and the hare. Okay, so like we're both generators. We're both in the river. And we're going to get to our mission at the same time at the end, okay? And pretty much with this, like, the tortoise, is taking its time and going slow. Like, that would be, like, the generator going in the river, in the tube. And the hare's on the, jetpacks in the water. Is like, I'm going this way. And the manifesting generator, you can put it back. The manifesting generator basically is skipping a lot of details so they can go fast, but then as they're acting, they go, oh wait, crap, I need to go back and get this detail. That's fine. Like for me, I'm like so detailed sometimes, and I'm like, I'm like not moving. It's like super slow. But it's kind of good, like how we're together, because you kind of like pull me forward a little bit, but you understand that I need to go slow, and I kind of remind you too, like, hey, here's the details that we're missing.
Exactly.
As you're jumping in your jetpack, like there's all these details we need to do.
Yeah, and an internal level too, it's interesting. It's almost like somewhat of an ability to like see into the future, I guess I would say, where it's like these like future things come into my field, and I see exactly how to travel up there, but then
it's like the timeline opens up and you see straight down the time.
Right. It's like a vision all the way down this tunnel of like, okay, this is what's going to be created. And then all of a sudden it's like back in the generatorness, and it's like, okay, now this is what it's going to take to get there, and I'm like filling in these mile markers to that future thing, and like she's helping me to like fill in the things in between those mile markers that I've like laid out.
Yeah, it's like he goes to level 8, like when we're starting something, and I'm like, whoa, we gotta do like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. And it's like, okay, I'll come back to 4. I'll you know, take it from an 8 to a 4. I'm like, okay, let me like fill this in, you know, and get to it. But yeah, it's like, so we all have like our roles, and when we are coming from our life code and, you know, reacting or responding from that, then life is easy. So the generator gets like ease and satisfaction and unexpected rewards. So that's why you see this girl sitting here, especially for the manifesting generator. They get unexpected rewards through patience. And now patience doesn't mean that just not doing anything, even though this girl sitting here looks like she's not really doing anything. So you don't want to be like overly passive, okay? So as generators, we have these enormous reservoirs of energy and like kind of like unstoppable creativity that we still need to utilize. And yeah, so we don't want to be overly passive either. And yeah, so you might be able to explain this one better than me.
Yeah, for sure. So this is basically, as manifesting generators, like we're our own worst enemy, and I mean this is true with a lot of people, but like especially with the manifesting generator, like I was saying, it's almost like a split personality or something in a way, because the manifester really has this way of sometimes, because there's so much going on, the internal aspect of us that's manifesting will kind of like trick us into these actions that aren't really necessarily always in alignment with our responsiveness and our patience. So that it's really a process of trial and error, like I said. So you know, the goal is to just to tap into that flow and not be that worst enemy, that guy that's up there in the maze that can happen with the manifestor energy.
Right. And then, you know, not being overly passive is really initiating from response, though. So, like, you can initiate things that are coming from response. And response is a super subtle thing. Now, everything we just talked about for the generators, including the manifesting generator part and the first part, which was just like titled generator, that was overall generators. We just talked about the subtype manifesting generator, and now we're going to get into a little more detail about what it is to be like a pure generator. If your type says generator, it's like a pure generator, and it does not say manifesting, your goal in life is resilience. So manifesting generator's goal really is patience. And for a pure generator, we have resilience. We are finding the universal rhythm, because as a generator, everything is about flow. Okay, so we need to have the courage to be patient and trust in life, and also have perfect timing. Okay, and pure generators generally have a little bit more ease with the timing thing, because we don't have as much pressure from like the throat, and well, Tom has an open root also, so that's you know, pressuring him to be impatient. But the pure generator has sometimes more fluidity and a resilient attitude. So it's really important for us not to give up easily, because we need to stay with whatever process that we responded to, and we'll see that everything is revealing itself over time. And through this process and flow, it's going to lead us into the future. So we really need to stay present, because, you know, everything's going to unfold. We don't need to work out necessarily all the details of the future. We just need to take it moment by moment, and generally that's what we're doing. So really not worrying about where we're going and not interfering with this natural rhythm. So everything we're talking about so far is to help us tap into, you know, that universal higher power, And when we can find that universal rhythm, which is what a generator is all about, everything is just going to naturally unfold. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to like really worry and fret, um, about the future or knowing where we're going. Just don't interfere with the flow. Okay, so if we're in this river and we see these rocks coming up, we respond. Okay, we don't need to worry like, oh my god, the river's going to be filled with rocks. No, we take it one rock at a time and we go around it or through it, whatever we feel is going to be the best approach. um, so it's really important for the generators to unlearn the proactive life code, because what's happening with generators in the world, and this goes back to what we were saying about the manifestors, and how the manifestors really kind of establish the hierarchical, dynamic of the planet, and that's kind of fading out. With that, a lot of society has been conditioned, even the generators, a lot of us are conditioned to be proactive. Okay, so it's not so much about learning how to respond, it's more learning how to not be proactive. Okay, so just like, really just wait for things to come to you. This is your true nature if you're a generator. So everything will become easier and easier, even the rocks that we see coming up or the obstacles. And, there really is a difference between navigating an obstacle versus, encountering resistance with these rocks. If we can navigate it, that's going to be more of a definition of life's rhythm than trying to resist. So we need to stop fighting obstruction, stop the resistance, really just navigate all the obstacles, go with the flow, watch whatever frustrations are coming out, and not making the obstacles the point of our resistance. So as we see them coming up, not making it, a huge frustration, just going around, going with the flow. Because the obstacles do dissolve over time. And as we're, going with the flow, we're not being in a hurry, and that's going to definitely pay off. Okay, yeah, here's the tortoise and the hare again. Manifesting generator is the hare, and the tortoise is the generator. We kind of already talked about that, so we can go to the next one. Now, with the manifesting generator as the hare, they make quantum leaps. Okay, now with that, they also have to backtrack for any missing details so that they can retrieve them, and that's their rhythm. Okay, so their rhythm is to go forward and then to go back to the details later. So if you're a manifesting generator, that's okay. And I've had to be okay with, Tom doing it, like, why are you missing these details? Like, come on, like, what's going on? But that's okay. Like, he is allowed to jump forward, kind of see where the timelines go, and like come back, and then like I help him as well with those details. Now with the generator, we move through life, and we're going, through and seeing these rocks and going around the obstacles, and then we reach like plateaus. So the manifesting generator does these like quantum leaps, like all of a sudden like breaks through like something big. And the generator, we kind of like hit these plateaus for a while, and we're like, okay, like what's gonna go, and like what's happening, and then all of a sudden we also go through, to like all of a sudden next level of whatever it is. We have a more steadier rhythm if we're just the pure generators. The manifesting generator is kind of like forward and then back, forward and then back, forward and then back, and the generator is kind of like, ooh, here we go, So that's a little bit more about those energy types. Now, again, the resiliency is really going to be what pays off for the generator, and patience for the manifesting generator. Now, both of our types, neither one of them is an advantage. Neither one is better or worse than the other. We're just different, and that's the same with all these types. They're all just different. Each one of us has a unique genius that wants to be expressed, and this is exactly how you start tapping into that. And it's really like, so we're not seeing life as obstacles either, because it's not. Everything in life is moving all of us. You know, it just depends on how we interact with that energy or those obstacles.
Yeah, and I mean, just to to touch really quick on how we're saying like one is not necessarily better than the other or whatever. Even though like earlier we were saying, oh, the manifesting generator has the least limitations or something like that. But like personally, even as a manifesting generator, there are times when I've looked at every other life code, even like the generator, and I'm like, oh God, that's got to be so much easier because it's like less confusing. And so, we all like the grass is greener syndrome where we'll like look at some aspects in another life code and be like, oh, that I wish I was that. But like really, once we tap into our authority and our strategy, then we don't really have that so much anymore, because that's the thing, is we're only really feeling that way when we're not tapped into the strategy and the flow. And so that's something important to consider too, where when we're tapped into into our harmony and our essence and our form, then we're going to be satisfied, or we're going to be at peace, or or whatever it is, where everything is going to be great. And that's why these tools are really awesome, because they can tap us into that flow, and then we're there.
Yeah, and the generators can be considered to like the creative lifeblood of humanity. We are the most. We're like almost 70% of the population on the planet. So we are the ones that are like the pulse of the planet. Keeping the cosmic body alive and vibrating, and we have great potential, even though we're not manifestors. We have great potential to have great achievements in our life, and it's the same goes for all of the life codes. They have great potential for achievement, but without the support and help from the generators, it's not going to go as far. So it's like we all need to work together, and go based on our life codes and types, and we can get past the planetary conditioning. Because if you think the majority of the planet's generators, and we are conditioned to be manifestors, we're emitting out an energetic current from our sacral that is like conditioning the planet, and it's sending out this energy wave that's not good, and it's causing a lot of catastrophe. We all need to kind of start to align and put good energy out from what our highest self is calling of us. We're kind of like the bloodstream. We're the energy of the planet, and it's unhealthy right now. It's conditioned and not in a good state, and it's endangering the whole. So we need to get the generators, functioning correctly from response, and we need to get the manifestors communicating with the projectors and the generators and the reflectors, and everybody just working together, so that we can also heal the planet. And so really the solution for generators is that we need to relax and to find our creative role in this process. Because we are a part of life, rather than trying to like master and control and initiate. Like we just need to like really be tapped in with the flow. So we cannot compromise, and we should not compromise our creativity anymore out of fear or conditioning, or not having enough, or being enough, or feeling like we have to struggle, because that's not true. Like life doesn't have to be a struggle, and this is going to help us get to that. And by doing what we love, we're able to allow life to bring us whatever it is we want. So that's pretty much the cap for the generators. We'll go to the third type, which is the interactive life code. So if you're on Jovian Archive and yours says projector, you are also having an interactive life code. Now, typically, these life codes would be considered a non-energy type, but the great gift of the projector or the interactive life code is that they understand energy. They have a very open design, meaning a lot of the centers are undefined. They're white. So it's allowing them to take in more energy. So like we were stating before, when you come into a room, the defined centers or the colored in centers are the ones that you're like transmitting into the room. And the white centers are what you're picking up, what you're receiving. So because the projectors aura, or their body is so open and they're able to take in more, they're able to guide others. Okay, so they're also the systems masters because they see the broader picture of how things work. And it's really important for a interactive life code projector to wait to be recognized. So the strategy of this one is waiting for the invitation. I mean, have you ever been around somebody that just wants to give you advice about every little thing you didn't ask for it? You know, and they're just telling you everything and kind of like being in a way that it's like, all right, like this is uncomfortable. Hold on a second. I don't even know you that well. Like, calm down. So the projector's energy, so manifestor comes out from in, okay? The generator comes all in. Okay, the projector is like a laser and it's coming through those defined centers. Okay, so where they're open, but then they have a couple defined centers, there's like lasers coming into other people. It's really interesting too because
you can really feel it.
I can feel it, like we can feel it, and you'll start to feel it too when you're around people, because they like penetrate to like your core when they're around you, and it's very sometimes intense, but they're able to like, I don't know, they like cut through the reality in some way that's they're seeing straight through the energy. They're watching the energy, okay? And they're riding, projectors are beings that are riding on the energy current waves of the generator that's emanating from our sacral. So they work really well with the generators. But yeah, if they are not invited and, you know, coming from a place of recognition, which is an invitation to them, you know, they kind of get in the way. They start to interfere. Okay, so we see this guy here talking or, you know, sitting with this lady. And, you know, I don't know, maybe he's a projector or she's the projector, maybe. But basically, you know, they're waiting for recognition from others because they have special abilities. So if you're a projector, you have some sort of special ability to share with the world. And it's very hard, but you need to wait to let it out. When somebody appreciates you, it enhances your like superpowers or your abilities. And appreciation from someone else is an invitation, okay? But only if you're recognized do your true powers actually emerge. Otherwise, you know, they're going to be hidden away from the world, and, you know, you'll kind of always be struggling to see if someone's going to recognize you. Now, there are several different variations of projectors. Each one of them has their own set of unique abilities. Did you want to say something about this one, or?
Yeah, I just want to say really quick, like, so in this kind of laser-like ability, right, we see this chart with the different, on this chart all the centers are open, and just picked this to be able to help illustrate this, but we take in the energy through the open centers, the white centers, also the white lines too, but we're not going to get into that right now. But the white areas are where we take in energy, and projectors especially, they have a very generally they tend to have these very open auras that allow them to take in all of this information, to experience it, and to look at it in such a unique way. And that's really how they're seeing into different people. And I also wanted to say really quick too, the interesting thing about the projector and the timing, because this is the most recent of all of the aura types. And as humanity is really, we're going from this manifestor-led phase to this more collective-based generator oriented time, where we're really moving into you know, a collective intelligence. There's an emerging organism that's more based on the collective. And my feelings personally are that that's why the projector has really emerged at this time, because the projectors are the guides. And as this new organism is being developed and coming online, the projectors nature has produced the projector to help guide the manifestors and the generators into their new roles within this collective, where the different kind of organs and glands, as you will, of this new being. So it's like the projectors are really here to help be like, oh, okay, I see your energy as a generator. You would be better over here, and to do things kind of like this. And the manifestor is like, oh, these are, the projectors can look at the manifestors and go, your creative, impacting, proactive energy would be really useful over here. So that's the projectors are the most conditioned nowadays because they're the newest.
Well, and they have so many open centers.
And they have so many
so
open
they're getting
centers.
like all these people that have defined centers that come into their aura, are conditioning them.
And I've heard for the projectors, because they have so many open centers, being around generators and especially manifestors, it's kind of like, they're in like a little dinghy or something, and then there's this massive, ship, like a whole freight carrier ship that's coming through, because they're so sensitive, and so they're like, wow, it's just like they feel so much, so it's really easy to be conditioned.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just how the manifestor suffers anger, okay, and that's what they get because they don't want to be controlled. The generators suffer frustration because they're not listening to their authority and their internal higher self. The projector or the interactive life code suffers bitterness. So if you can imagine somebody with a superpower, right, and they just want to tell the world about it, but they're not waiting to be recognized. They're not waiting for an invitation. They're just kind of splurting it out. They're going to be bitter because no one's listening to them, and they feel undervalued. They feel like, why don't these people recognize me? And that's if they're not waiting. If they would just wait for the invitation, people would recognize them. But that's how when you're, what human design calls the not self. Okay, so the not self is when you're acting or making decisions in a way that's not coming from your design or from what you're supposed to be doing. So as a projector, if they're feeling bitter and undervalued, they need to wait for invitation, but they also need to stop comparing themselves to others. Because if they're comparing themselves, like you said, and they're in a dinghy with the energy beings or the generators, they start comparing themselves like, wow, those generators are like doing a lot of work, and all the projectors have undefined sacral centers, so they're receiving all of our sacral energy just like straight into their sacral. So they get this energy when they're around generators, like, woo, okay, what are we gonna do, but having an undefined sacral center is, not knowing when enough is enough. So that's the conditioning of it. So when they're getting conditioned by our sacral center, they can overwork themselves because they're also comparing themselves to us. But they're not here to work, really. They're here to guide us, so if you want to think that's work. But they're not here to, do all this busy work, and they don't need to respond either. Generators need to respond. But the projectors, they just have to wait for somebody to recognize them, and then they increase the efficiency of everybody around them because they are the system's masters, okay? They're seeing through their openness all these amazing ways that everybody could work together or these different things. So they're not necessarily the leader, but they could be correlated with leadership, but leadership through facilitation. So the facilitation of the group, okay, and kind of bringing it through. Now, as a projector, if your type says projector, you need to observe and appreciate all the energy that's around you and see how the energy is working. Because you facilitate and take in energy and you're distributing it to others, just like this picture here of all this energy, you need to not interfere with where the energy, where the initiation of the energy is coming from. Okay, so if you're around a sacral being and they're expressing to you what they're going to do based on a response. Don't try to condition them by telling them not to do it. You can, if they recognize and appreciate you, you can advise them to put their energy over here instead of over there. But don't interfere, okay? Like, you want to appreciate the energy, wait to be recognized, and start to distribute the energy. That's what you're doing. And that's through facilitation. And when you appreciate the energetics about what is happening around you, you don't really need to do anything about it, okay? You're here to observe, take it in, so that you can guide others, because you're seeing in ways that other people aren't.
Exactly. The more you observe, the more you get to basically tap into your superpower, observing. So you're collecting data kind of on how everything's working. Like, oh, that's how this person works. That's how that person works. That's how this, situation works. Whatever it may be, whether it's your career, your interpersonal life, you're collecting that data. So then the moment when you receive that invitation, you're recognized. Now you've amassed all of this amazing view on the world to guide people in this way that's just like so profound. Because think of it like you being Google or something, right? So Google is like amassing all of this data and all of these things. Yes, maybe you may feel like, okay, I'm not doing as much, quote unquote, as the generator or the manifesting generator or something. But when the person comes to you, they recognize, oh, okay, Google has a lot of information. They put in that question and they get exactly the answer that they need in that perfect way. That is such an incredibly massive effect on everything that's going on, because now that person goes out with exactly what they needed to do whatever it was they need to do,
Yeah, and really, as a projector, if you're a projector, and you have a superpower, for one, you're seeing the energy like fast, you know what I mean? So you're like waiting for people to catch up. And your job really is, as a guide, is to deliver the energy like gently to others too. Not to be like, this is what I see, and people are like, whoa, like, what are you doing? You really want to see the process gently for the generators, okay? And you need to communicate it to us. Again, because of like the sacral conditioning from the generators, it's likely that projectors, being only 1 in 5, like it's about 20% of the population, it's pretty guaranteed if you're a projector, you're around a lot of generators. So you can be conditioned to be like the super slaves of the society, and you don't want to do that. If you are around a generator and you're getting a lot of work done, and you're like, feeling like, oh, I can just keep going, know when enough is enough, you're not listening to your body, well, guess what? You're going to have health problems, and you're going to be exhausted, and you're really not living up to your potential. You're in a space where you're like just slaving away because you're being conditioned, and that's not your highest goal. You are here to know others, to recognize and to guide them. So as you see the Karate Kid here, manifestors initiate, generators create, and projectors guide, and they have skills at interacting with others. Now, the secret for the projector is to find the right people in your life, okay? Because you're riding on the energy currents. You need to be around the right people that recognize you. You are not designed to initiate activity in a proactive way. So just like the generator is here to wait to respond. Unless you are in the aura of somebody that recognizes you. So if you are in the aura of somebody that really like 100%, and depending on your authority, but you'll know based on your authority if that person really recognizes you, because somebody described it as like every cell in the body like lit up like the sun. Like you just feel it, like, oh, this person like really gets me, and like I can share my vision of what I'm seeing, and like really guide them, and like through a partnership, and you're gonna get success. Okay, so generators want satisfaction, and that's what they get out of going through life in the correct way. Manifestors want peacefulness, and projectors get success. So you're going to be successful working with these other beings, if you're operating correctly. It's actually rare for projectors to work alone. They can't really release their creative potential unless they're around people that recognize them. So if there's not someone close to you and you're a projector, just wait. You may only get a few invitations in your life, like true people that recognize and appreciate you. And just go through your life and make sure you're appreciating and recognizing the energy and waiting and like really believing in yourself and like having faith and trust in yourself that you are, you really got it. You don't need to prove yourself. Okay? If you start trying to prove yourself, that's conditioning. That's pushing people away. That's making people not recognize you. If you're like trying to prove yourself, or you're always giving advice and people are asking for your advice, it's a penetrating aura. It's a laser. It's like hurting. It's like, oh God, like, can you chill out?
Yeah, my example of this, I put in a slide of Morpheus because it's like, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, it's like Morpheus has this kind of projector like ability where he scouts out kind of, and he finds Neo, right? And he has this way of just knowing and seeing the energy, how it works, and knowing that Neo was the one, right? And Neo recognizes Morpheus. He recognizes Morpheus's, ability, his projector-like ability to see how things work and to understand things. And that's how Morpheus kind of fulfills his role, is by finding Neo and teaching him and guiding him. Where, if you notice also, other people in the movie, like a lot, like the commander guy, doesn't recognize him. He doesn't recognize that Morpheus can see like this. And so that's kind of that same dynamic, right? Like, he's not getting that recognition there, but yet he's still fulfilling his role because he saw Neo's perfection within the systems in the Matrix and knew that he was the one, and guided him to be able to fulfill. And through that, Morpheus got his fulfillment and his success, right?
Right. Yeah, so like I was saying, it's rare to encounter these experiences as a projector where you're like actually really recognized. Now, what they call like the death of the projector is like you compromising yourself, where you might feel like you're gonna miss an opportunity if you don't, even though you know somebody isn't recognizing you 100%. Okay, you're like, well, maybe like this will work or whatever. I don't know what you're thinking, but like you go into a situation, the person doesn't respect you, and they don't really get you, and you go into it and you just, okay, well, they'll like eventually see me, or they'll, no, like it's not going to work that way. You need to like, listen to your authority, be 100% recognized, and appreciated, and then enter into the situation. And if you're not doing that and you're going into a situation that you shouldn't be, you're exhausted. So that's also another way to know if you're doing that. Are you exhausted? Are you bitter? Because if you're bitter and exhausted, you're giving yourself the permission to talk to others and give them advice, and people that don't recognize you, and you're trying to prove yourself, or you're, being around the wrong people. You're around the wrong people if you're exhausted and drained. And if that's the case, just like it's okay. Just smile and like, it's okay. Just go along. It's not meant for me to be with you right now, and that's okay, because just like the Karate Kid, I don't really know in that movie, but like basically if a student comes to you, like say you're the master, whatever, and like a student comes to you, like, are you going to give your energy as a master to a student that is not going to be able to follow any of your advice or guidelines? And if you're doing that, why are you doing that? Like just because you think, oh, this might be a good opportunity, or I'm afraid no one else is going to recognize me. I'm not a projector, so I don't know, but I have projector friends, and like, it's got to be difficult for sure, but this can really help you. Some of our projector friends that we've spoken with said for sure this information helps a lot.
Probably more so even than others.
Yeah. Yeah,
like a huge.
They say that like projectors could probably use this information like the most. Like we all can, but projectors especially, because a lot of them feel like purposeless too, so.
And my advice too for some projectors that I met, because they're like, oh, I have to wait for the invitation, like how is that, like how can I be successful then, or how can like what can I do about that? And oftentimes what I've told them is like, put yourself in a position where people are going to come to you and recognize you. It's like, today we're in this like modern world where we have the internet at our disposal, so we can like offer services of some kind, whether it's like, maybe it's business consultation, maybe it's guidance in personal growth or accounting, whatever it is, some sort of service where you're tapping into your own personal kind of superpower and then offering it, right, in this way where people are just naturally going to come to you and go, oh, this guy, this person, this woman, whatever, knows about this. And then, of course, they're going to recognize you, right? Because they're like, oh, you're an expert in that. Let me go to you for my guidance,
Yeah, and that's an example. Just make sure you're not, like, initiating.
Yeah.
Make sure you're coming from, like, invitation. Maybe you just invited them. I don't know. But, yeah, and also another good point to know is, like, as we all start to really live in our life code or our design, is that our aura changes frequency. So as we start to really follow this, the aura becomes stronger, and it starts to take on this different energy that's like, okay, I'm going this way, and this is how it's going to work. And so for projectors, once you wait to be recognized and you start getting recognized and appreciated, and you appreciate and recognize and not interfere with the others, and you guide when you're invited, you're going to receive more invitations in the future because your aura starts to morph, and it starts to change frequency and grow and become stronger. And it's really just having that faith too, like having that faith and knowing that it's going to come and you're going to have that. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so we had the lions here.
This was just to illustrate compromise, right? Because, like Danny was saying, when projectors are with other people and there's this certain interaction of the energy centers and the open and undefined channels, we can find projectors compromising a lot. That's why I put this picture. It's like this guy, he's talking to all these lions and they're coming to a compromise on some sort of situation.
Well, and he's compromising himself.
Exactly.
And this is the thing with projectors, it's when you first, okay, so for projectors, it's about the main people, the most important people you have in your life. Okay, do not compromise with them. So it's like if you meet some people and it's, let's say it's going to be a relationship or a work situation or even your family, even people like you're going to be around a lot, your closest friends. Don't compromise yourself then, because you'll know right when you meet them, do they recognize me? And if you have key people in your life that don't recognize or appreciate you, well, guess what? You're like a compromised projector who's weakening and the health is going down and you're not getting recognized and you're feeling undervalued. So it's really important with the key people, and it happens when you first meet them. So you understand this. You just really need to have faith in yourself.
And that's why the other reason why I put this slide too is because that's kind of what the compromises feel like. Like even as non-projectors, when we have these compromises between auras, like it can feel really intense, like literally almost like lions, and like we're in a den
interacting with them.
Yeah, and we're like, wow, this is like really intense and overwhelming. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. But you need to have faith that okay, there's going to be all these other opportunities coming.
Exactly.
So a lot of times we compromise ourselves. We're like, well, if I don't, okay, I know this isn't perfect, or I know it's not this, but for a projector, it's really important. You need to know that this person 100% is with you. And if you don't, you are going to miss other opportunities, actually.
Yeah.
So you're going to miss opportunities. But yeah, so once you recognize, though, I've heard this before, projectors well, do I need to keep being invited? Do I need to keep, And when I was first learning this, I kind of like thought that too. So I was like always inviting my projector friends, like, "Hey, do you want to come over?" Like always like inviting, like, "Hey, do you want to talk? Hey, whatever." And no, that's not really how it works. It's like when you first meet somebody, that's it. That's like your invitation. So when you first meet them and they recognize you and they see you and that's an invitation to you, then there's no more rules. You can basically kind of do whatever. You have free reign to communicate what you're seeing because you know that they're there and they're understanding you. And also to, get work done in that relationship, through that. So if you were doing like what Tom was saying, where you're going to broadcast your services online or whatever, you might be doing that with a generator who recognized you. And like, now you're kind of like manifesting through the recognition, and being in that key relationship that's providing you the success, because you're able in that relationship to express your superpowers.
Exactly.
Because it's amplified. Now it's somebody sees you. And having that one person or a few people in your life that really recognize or see you is going to make like everybody else, when they're around you, be like, whoa, like I want to be around you. Like what's going on? It actually like draws more people to you. It like creates this magic that you're able to free yourself in. And release your gifts into the group, which is what we need. We all need that, So again, your true role is a facilitator, not necessarily like the leader. And that's one thing that they also could use some. I don't know if you want to put that slide up. It kind of talks about it.
Yeah, for sure. Just really quick, kind of what I was saying before, I wanted to illustrate really as we're moving from a more kind of patriarchal, pyramidal, manifestor-based, energetic society into this more holistic collective organism. The generators the projectors are just so important, that we help to get in alignment, because they can really be really key, essential aspects. And this is where we'll see the synarchy emerge, which synarchy is just, all systems are hierarchical in a way, but a synarchy is more of a circular hierarchy, where it's like systems within systems, right? It's like there's a hierarchy within the fact that there's a solar system within a galaxy. It's not a pyramidal hierarchy where there's one person or thing in control. It's a circular hierarchy where there's just expanding bubbles, or like they've also been called holons, which are just like holes in parts within themselves, the micro and the macro.
Right, and it's like, no one is above anybody else. And this is what makes the projector like amazing, pure magic for groups. Because they come in and they see the energies to their openness and they're like, oh, this is what should happen, you guys, when they're recognized, They start putting things in groups and circles and they synergize everything. And, it's fair and it's awesome. And we all are efficient now. And we're all like working better together and balancing and all this stuff. So
they can see how each unique creative aspect in the system works together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And see that it's like, oh, it's not you're above or below this other person or anything. It's that your gift goes best here and your gift goes best here. Or it may not be a person. It may also be like an energy or something, like on a website or something, like, oh, this device and this function works best over here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and projectors are really like the true leaders of the future because they're not really interested in leadership, which is funny. But, they are really interested in being around the right people and, synergizing things and that way they can do whatever they want when they're with the right people because that's how they work. So if you want to go back to that slide, we can see it here that because the projector has an undefined sacral, it's acting as a conduit of energy. And so what they do is they shift this energy that's coming in from where there's too much energy to where there's too little. So they're creating this synarchy rather than hierarchy. So they can actually distribute the energy correctly. And everyone is going to fulfill the role that belongs to them. So the old paradigm is the pyramid, the ego, as we can see in the left here, and the new one is where everyone's playing and fulfilling their role correctly. And at a planetary level, projectors are here to bring this balance through the sharing of resources and integration to the collective. So just like we know that the energy is also currency, is also resources, they can help through their leadership once being recognized by distributing resources and sharing. Now, generators and projectors are meant to lock into each other. So as you can see, projectors have like this laser type of aura, and generators have an aura that comes in and like envelops everything. You can see how that might work together, where the projector aura is like penetrating the generator, locking into it in a way that helps create the life of the whole organism. We're collectively building it together. Now, I said it earlier how the projectors are kind of like floating around on the energy currents created by the generators. Now, it doesn't mean that generators don't have a purpose. They actually do. They have a very specific purpose. And it's kind of like they dock into the generator. So if you have the projector aura that's like a laser, and the generator aura is like coming in, and we like receive the laser when we are like okay with it, like consent, and it like comes in and we go okay, it locks in and we get information, so it's like the projectors are floating around on these currents with awesome information that we need. They lock into the generators and they go, oh, here you go, here's like some really epic information that you need, that we may not have been able to see, and normally we can't see without it. So they hold the keys to a lot of different, like you think of the generators as like locks, right? So they hold different keys for all of these different people to kind of like dock into and like deliver the information and the energy to them.
Yeah, really, again, like Google is a great example. It's this like it's this system of energy that people can like dock into, and they're like, oh, okay, that's where I'm going next. Like I got my download, and then can go on to go out and do the work while they can continue to just amass information and collect data,
Right, and yeah, and just how like Google is meant for people to go to Google. Google doesn't go to people, right? Google doesn't go, hey, do you want to look this up? Like, hey, come here.
If it did, people would probably get a little bit annoyed,
Yeah, so projectors are actually like genetically encoded for people to go to them and approach them and say, hey, like what information do you have for me? I see you got something. And that's really going to be a foundation of humanity's success. If generators can recognize the projectors and appreciate them, and if generators can come from response, and if projectors can really wait and stop trying to impose, this energy. So we're kind of in this dynamic, we're shifting it, we're all kind of finding our role. So that we can work together properly, and respect each other. Now, until you recognize, there's nothing for you to do with that energy. If you're around people that don't recognize you, just, you don't really need to spend much time with them. And you'll know, too, when your key is a projector, your aura doesn't fit exactly right in the lock of the generator. Don't try to make it fit, or if it doesn't feel right, that's when okay, like, doesn't quite fit all the way. You don't need to try to make it fit in any way. It either fits or it doesn't. That's it. And you'll find relief when you're not trying to make the keys fit. So you can know from now on, don't do that anymore. You don't need to do that anymore. Because it's not one of those things where it's like, well, maybe if I just twist it this way. No. Like, it's just not.
It'll probably break off in the door.
Yeah, it might not be fun for either party. So, and that's like the stop trying to get people to recognize you that we've been talking about. And when somebody doesn't recognize you, it's not personal. Let it go immediately. Like, they don't recognize you, it's okay. It's not a personal thing. And none of this is personal. Any of these things we're talking about, they're not personal. It's just
how energy works.
Yeah, it's just the mechanics of energy. We're all waiting for it to happen. So, because you're open as a projector, and we've talked about your conditioning which we all have conditioning, it's important, really important for you to get your own space. I mean, all of our auras need to like take time apart, but especially for a projector, it's like you really need to get into your own space sometimes, and that also includes like sleeping alone. Anybody within 4 feet of you is conditioning you. Yeah. So we condition each other a lot. We see it, but it's helpful for us now that we like are able to see, because there's a lot more detail into just the types. Like we can see our channels and the centers and all of that.
And also, especially like the nature of this work that we're doing, it's awesome to be able to see how interactions take place so that we can describe them to others and you know, be more helpful. So
yeah, definitely. So yeah, anyone within 4 feet is conditioning you. If you're around a generator and you're overworking, you really need to take your own space sometimes, and you know, go to bed when you feel tired, like sleep alone. You're gonna have health problems. You cannot sustain this type of energetic, you know, interaction on a continual basis. All right, so that was it for the projectors. We have one more, the digestive life code. Now, the digestive life code is known as the reflector type in human design. This is the last of the life codes that we have here, and it's also the most rare. It's only 1% of the population, so you know, 1 in 100 people. Now, the reflector sees the impact. Okay, they can see both worlds. They see projectors facilitating and waiting. They can see if the generators are waiting properly to respond. They can see how the manifestors are operating. And the way that their energy works as a reflector is creating an energy from inside of them from the motion of the moon. So they're like celestial beings. They're the only ones that have the authority of like the external, like another planetary body. Okay, there are other types that have like an external authority, but so they work with the moon. Okay, so the reflector has a completely, like pretty much completely open. They don't have any centers defined in their chart. So they may have what are called gates. They're like the numbers on the triangles and the squares, the centers. Okay, the numbers, those are called gates. So they'll have gates active, but they don't have any of the centers filled in, which means that they are taking in everything. Like they are just completely receiving everything. And for them, the energy can feel kind of like bubbles in champagne, like coming up from the bottom of champagne, and it's like this fizzing energy that seems to come from nowhere. So for them, it's kind of like straight. They get surprised. Okay, so the generators get satisfaction, the projectors get success, the manifestors get peacefulness, the reflectors get surprise. That's surprising. So it's kind of interesting because they're just kind of floating around in the energy. So their environment's super important, but they're kind of just almost at the whim of like whatever energy is going on around them. So it's surprising, you know. It's like everything's coming into their energy, and they get to experience what is, you know, being activated in them. So all those gates that they have on the centers are being activated by other people. Okay, so they get surprised by it because they're experiencing something that they don't normally have. Which this can lead them to be like unemotional or impersonal, and that's okay. You know, this is part of their role. Doesn't mean that they don't have emotions, but you know, they should kind of be unemotional when it's, you know, just being kind of at the whim of the environment and not taking things personally is really going to be the best way to go about it. But they are seeing who is actually awake to the process. So like we were stating earlier, that they see the projectors waiting and things like that. They report to the manifester, okay, and they say, okay, this is, you know, the projectors are doing this, the generators are doing that, and they're serving like greater forces than the rest of us. They are really the servants of this greater life. Kind of like the, kindergarten teacher making sure the rest of us stay in line, you know? Uh, it's funny too, because when Ra talks about reflectors, he's he's kind of funny with it. Oh, he's kind of like, oh, they're the ones that are gonna, tell who's breaking the rules, or kind of
Well,
like
yeah,
the cop,
and that's why I put the picture here of the architect from the Matrix, because in a lot of ways that character really reflects the reflector, right? Because so he's got all of these TVs, right? And those are like all the open channels and centers within the body, always taking in all this information from the whole construct, right? And it's also very impersonal, right? Like, so he built this system, okay, and then he's kind of sitting back, like witnessing and surprised as Neo wakes up, right? Which again is another almost very reflector like nature. They see who's in alignment, who's in awake, who's out of line, all these different things. And again, like a force of nature, right? The archetype or the architect in the Matrix is very much like he's like this force of nature. Neo like gets there, and again, Neo's kind of like the manifester, right? He's like going out and he's like making the impact, and then he gets to the architect, and it's like this interaction where it's just the architect's there to be like, oh, okay, well, you see, the system has been built, and there's always ends up something that's out of line, and wakes up and say like tells him, he gives him these secrets as to what's going on and how this works, and it's very much like how reflectors work within all this.
Right. Yeah, because they're so open, they see like any anomalies that are happening in the community.
Exactly.
And they say too, it's like the village always has like one wise woman or one wise man, that's always there, and that's kind of like the reflector. And for the reflector, like as long as people are willing to or able to wait for your clarity, because it takes 28 days, the moon cycle. That's because there's transits of the planets that go through and activate each part of you during the 28 days, or different parts. Okay, so during those times, and depending on who you're around, and during that time you communicate to others, a lot of different people. But that's how you're going to gain your clarity, and it does take 28 days. But then you like see all this information. It's very, very deep and profound that you can share. And that's like the wise person of the village or the community. And they're always the ones to see like the problem first too. Like whatever's happening, they'll like be able to be like, oh, because they can predict it too. They can kind of see where the energy is going and what's happening.
You've seen this archetype in other movies too. It's like that, like maybe like the wise woman or like witch that the king goes to and is like, so there's all this stuff going on, like please tell me, and they're like, oh, well, this person will end up causing your demise, and it's like, and then they don't come back for like months, and then that person just has that little gem that just changes the course of history or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and as like a child, a reflector child, like they really need a stable environment, and they need to be like immersed in their community, like doing all sorts of different things, and like just have a really loving, everybody needs that, but like especially for the reflector,
really important.
Yeah, no, they don't have any consistent definition. Now what that means is like they don't have any sensors defined or colored in, which means like activated by the channel. That would be the lines. If you're looking at your chart and you have colored in centers, that means you have a consistent definition of some sort. They do not. Reflectors do not have a consistent definition. So if you're a reflector, you really depend on other people's energy to make things happen. So you do well like with friendships, like you really need friends to like getting friendships, and through those friendships allowing things to kind of manifest in a different way. Yeah, so if we want to go to like the next slide about it. Oh yeah, so this part talks about, the kind of like the conditioning as well, because they don't have any consistent definition in their design, and they depend on other people's energy. for things to manifest, they have kind of like a Teflon aura. So it means that their aura is protecting them from conditioning. And being so very different from the rest of the population of the planet, and it's kind of funny that their conditioning is actually to try to make something stick, because as all the energy comes in, like nothing is sticking. So it's like their conditioning is to try to be conditioned. Like, it doesn't make sense, but they just have to really have like trust that, like, wherever they are, whatever situation they're in, like, it's gonna be okay, and like just kind of go with it. Like, be with your environment, be with the people, like trust your process of gaining clarity over the
lunar cycle.
Yeah, over the lunar cycle. And if you're a reflector, you're going to be able to see like who is different, okay, in the groups, and you'll be able to see all these different energies and how to give them guidance to and communicate with the manifestors, so that we can all really make something happen together. Now when you communicate your findings or your energy, what you've become clear about within the 28 days, you are augmenting the whole energetic situation, and you're uplifting, based on your findings. So it's really important. It's like super awesome too to have a reflector in the group that's following their strategy. Part of the conditioning, I guess, or if you want to say like the thing that they need to look out for is like losing themselves in the group, because they're so open. So it is important as a reflector as well. Definitely like sleep alone, like take your time being in spaces alone, but also like when you're waiting for the 28 days to get clarity, and this is more so about like your major life decisions and who you have, like key things in your life. Of course, you can't wait 28 days to be like, hey, should I drink this like turmeric tea? It's like, oh, God, that's going to take a while. But like for your more major decisions, you have to wait 28 days to get the clarity. So with that, you're able to balance and empower others in a way that's going to lead to change. So you reflect that in your networks, and that's why it's reflector. You're reflecting back what is going on in the group. Exactly. What's going on in your environment. So as a child, you really needed a stable environment so that you can properly reflect that back and be stable and like be in your community, because everything that's coming in, the open centers in human design amplify like the defined centers of the others. So like, for example, he has a defined throat and mine is not defined, so I'm amplifying his throat by talking more. It's like, and it's like kind of pressure too, a little bit. So the reflectors amplify everything that's coming in, and that's from their environment, from others, from the moon, from the transits. So they're like connected to this greater being, because they're also going through the transits of the moon cycle, and that's activating them on this other level that's providing clarity from this like deep connection. And they're also here to guide, and to point out areas where things could be developed so that success can come to them and the whole community. Oh, there's a dog here. Random dog. Anyway, so yeah, you are very sensitive to your environment if you're a reflector. And you thrive best, like all of us, but especially for you, in a loving atmosphere. And if you're like in a space where like you are getting disrupted or disturbed and things like that, then you're going to reflect that disharmony into that space.
Yeah, and so I put up this astrology zodiac wheel slide because, I mean, personally, what I feel is reflectors especially could really benefit from being aware of the different cycles and the current astrology and stuff like that, because they're so affected by it without definition. Besides just the moon, that's like the authority in the reflector type. But then all of the other planets, they're moving around through the different channels and different energy centers, constantly. it's like great for reflectors to be able to study that, to see, you know, on a weekly or daily or monthly basis, you know, okay, this is going to come in and this is going to influence my aura. So, you know, that's why I put that slide up there.
Right. And it's like those undefined centers, you can go to that slide, are, really like blank slates. Okay. So they're waiting to be written on and influenced or conditioned by outside environments or other people. They're kind of like the dormant potentials when the gates are activated. So they'll have all these energy centers open, but they'll have a couple of the gates, activated within them. And those are like dormant potentials. Okay, so reflectors have like the maximum amount of dormant potentials just waiting to be, connected with the right people in the right way at the right time so that they can, experience that new energy. And that's where their surprise comes from. That's the bubbling up of the energy. And it's allowing them to connect and evolve with others. And so their relationships are extremely important. And when we see these, dormant potentials, or what they sometimes call like hanging gates, where it's just one part of the channel is connected and the other part is needed, and the other person has the other part. So two people together with their designs have both pieces of the channel, and neither one of them has the full channel. They call that an electromagnetic connection. It's kind of like the sparks when you meet somebody, or when you're, with somebody, you guys are sparking off of this, energy that's coming through. So when you're around a reflector, and when they're around people, they get a lot of sparks with people.
It's like the bubbles, like the
Yeah.
supplies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's very real energy because the reflector is so open, and it's really interesting because they're amplifying so much from the defined centers. And with them, it's kind of like a sampling of frequencies. And sometimes in human design, they will refer to this aura as like a sampling aura. And this is, really a way for them to like sample the frequencies. Okay, and they're gonna mirror and reflect based on what's coming in from others, and throughout that process, it changes their perception, and that's again where you get the surprise. So feelings come and go, and the conditioning that would normally be applied to other aura types doesn't really apply to the reflector. It doesn't stick. They may feel conditioned in the moment, but eventually it's not going to stick. So having all of these centers undefined is both a gift and a vulnerability. Now, there are different rules for the reflector. Basically, the way that this process of ordering energy, or this aura, works is by digesting. That's why it's called a digestive life code. And that's why it takes 28 days. They're literally digesting the environment and everything at a cellular level. And they can become the people that they are around, or they really do become the people that they're around, and acting as a reliable mirror for the environment. Now, sometimes they can feel invisible or disappointed. And with that, their health is directly tied to the environment and those that they are around. So if they're feeling invisible or disappointed, um, you know, because maybe people don't understand how their energy works, and that it takes time to get to clarity, and that there's great wisdom, and if they're feeling like people around them don't understand their gifts, they're not going to be healthy either. They have a very different life rhythm than the rest of us, and the pressure, again, because pressure comes from these open centers. Well, the pressure enters into the open centers, and it comes from the people around you that have those centers defined, and it comes through as pressure. That is what is damaging the health. So for them, they just really need to understand that this digestion, this process of taking in the environment, really takes time, and to not ever make any decisions rapidly or, spontaneously. Um, they need to wait the whole month, the whole lunar cycle, to fully understand either a new person or a new environment, or, you know, just a big decision that they need to make. But during this time that they're waiting, they can talk with several different people and taking in and listening to what these other people have to say about it. And that's when the reflector rides the wave and goes from disappointment to surprise. That's really kind of the theme of the reflector, or the digestive life code. Uh, for the reflector, it's really an impersonal experience, and they're learning the truth of, this isn't me. Because these, centers are so open. When they're around others, they can think, oh, this is me. Now I have, whatever it is, whatever the conditioning that they're receiving in the moment, even though the conditioning is not going to stick, it's going to fall off. There's nothing for it to stick to. But and that's how they get lost, in the environment or in the group. And then they feel disappointed and undervalued and whatever. They start to think, oh, this is me, whoever they're around. And that's kind of where they start to go into disappointment mode. And that's their conditioning, is losing themselves. So, did you want to say something about that, or?
No, I think you covered it pretty well on that one for sure.
Yeah, and with reflectors, just like projectors, but reflectors more so, you really need more space in your life. So, like, the more open you are, you need more space, because people around you, and the way that the auras work is, if you put the charts together, like here's one chart and here's the other, and you see where the centers line up, whatever centers you have that the other person doesn't have, like, you're putting pressure on them, and wherever, they're putting pressure on you. There's like a lot more to it than that, but so especially for people that are like putting a lot of pressure on you, you really still need to like take space. And for reflectors, it's really important to take that space so that they can just tap in, because again, this is all about tapping in to like your highest source, your highest way of making decisions, and leading yourself through life. Not handing it over to the people you're around or your environment, or like, you need to choose these things and be guided by it, because your highest being is telling you that. It's just right now the mind we've put in control, and that's why a lot of us too are having like health problems. Even like the food choices we're making are based around these incorrect incorrect conditionings that like lead us to like make these poor decisions. We are all responsible to take the knowledge and apply it. It's no one else's responsibility. We have to kind of protect ourselves from conditioning and understand it, and see where it's coming from, and have compassion for ourselves, and keep going in. So, for a reflector, don't rush. Trust in your process. You're going to go from disappointment up to surprise, and it's going to happen, and you know this. You're in this wave. You're in a very different rhythm. So just really trust in the process and take the time to get clear, because you will become clear. All of a sudden, when you're clear, everything in your environment will be fixed too. Everything is like, oh, okay, now it's better. And it's okay. Like, you're going to go from times of feeling super unclear too. So that's normally like the beginning of the phase, and throughout it, you're like, oh, this does not make any sense. I don't know. Very unclear. But life really does spin around you. So knowing that, and knowing how you're entirely open, and that you're able to magnify these things for others, you're going to then connect with others and allowing everything to move through you. So you're allowing all these things to move through you and absorb and understand them, and then you just move on. Okay, so you don't really need to make any great effort. Just like this woman here meditating in this busy area, she's not really making a huge effort. But energies are coming her way, and that's kind of like the reflector. They don't really need to make a big effort, because things are just going to come around them. And if you are a reflector, you just need to trust in that, and trust that life is coming to you, and that events and situations are going to take their own course. And the people in your life are going to cause you, the direction of your life to unfold in a certain way. So all this is happening at your deep cellular and chemical level. You truly are a shapeshifter. And you need to find a way for you to like fluidly fit in, and you're probably already doing that, but just be aware that because of that, like you have that ability already, that people may try to like manipulate you. And if you sense that, definitely just give yourself some more time and space. Know that it's not personal, that auras are just trying to influence you, and not to make a quick decision, especially while you're in someone else's aura. So really be careful who you sit next to or who you work with. And to know whether or not you can really trust a person, that too is also going to take a whole lunar cycle. If you aren't clear about somebody in your life, you're going to start experiencing that dissipation into your environment. So where your energy starts to just kind of like dissolve into the environment. And that's kind of like your negative chemistry or the negative theme in your design. Is just like dissipating your sense of self into the group. So you can sometimes, and you need to watch out for like disappearing into others' ideas, thoughts, feelings, or sensations, because sometimes you may think that they are your own. But this energetic dissipation of you into the group is felt by everyone. And what that does is it actually sucks the energy out of the group. And then the group feels like something is missing and there's no cohesion. So, knowing that you're this powerful, you're so powerful to, not only suck all the energy out of the group, but you're so powerful it's almost like predict and like, be the wise one and communicate for all the groups and kind of like be the overseer also. In the right situation, your good chemistry is going to come out. And when that happens and you're in a group, everybody starts to feel like, oh, anything is possible. You bring this like empowering, like, adapting the energy of the environment that like people are like, they feel empowered and just really good and feel like unstoppable. That's really what you're going to bring in a way that's guiding people in a really important way. And it actually could not occur without you. So, all of these different life codes need to really be kind of like on their path, because we are higher states of being. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, one more sentence here on the reflector. The power of the reflector is directly linked to the intent of its community, as well as its ability to maintain group stability and harmony. So, again, that's like environment, like knowing where you are in your environment, because you're going to reflect the intent of that.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys really are like the diagnostic cells of the planet, and that's really important. I mean, it's important to have those checkpoints that can assess everything that's going on and keep everything in alignment. I think one of the last things I want to mention, just overall as a whole, is we are going to be having more webinars on this information. If anything is still confusing, we do offer what we call the soul mapping session, which is basically like we're tapping into your human design chart, your gene keys chart, your astrology chart, and taking from other systems to like depth psychology and different things to really help align you with your exact unique imprint. So if that's something you're interested in, just get a hold of us and stay tuned for more developments and more webinars and videos. Like,
yeah, I think the next one we'll probably do is like the probably the authorities,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to be like, because the life codes is like kind of like your strategy of how you interact with like the energy, you know, and it's also your aura. It's the aura, the type, and the strategy. Okay, so, and then the authority is also like what part of your body you can tap into, so that you can figure out, you can have like a clear, imagine going somewhere and whatever question you ask, it has the exact answer for like the best for you and for humanity, for the planet, and everything, you know, like for your highest good. Imagine having that access at your fingertips, and you do. We just need to be able to like tap into it. So yeah, we'll probably do that one next, and we'll keep going into all these other ones. But feel free to like message us too, like if you know us on Facebook, or you know our
We're at
channels.
hugs.world on the internet. Also, you know, Thomas Sochowicz on Facebook, Danielle Rodenroth. And then, you know, feel free if you want like exclusive tidbits and updates about this information. We have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/hugsworld. You can tune in there for, you know, awesome deals on this type of information. And we just really want to thank you so much for taking the time to participate in this webinar and your support in this information. It really has been some of the most powerful pieces of information in tapping us into our personal flows, and we really think that it's a large key in the shift forward for humanity.
Yeah, and it's something too that like takes time. You know, just know that it's gonna take a little while, you know, to adjust from the conditioning. If you think about it, your body, all the cells in your body take 7 years to replace. And all of these things, every energy that goes on is all the way down to the micro, so your cellular level as well as the macro. And we have to, you know, really, sometimes it says 7 years, you know, to replace all the cells in your body. But as you start doing it and you start paying attention to it, it gets easier. It's just like the starting of it, and really being consistent. Like learning how to be consistent is what you're looking for.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we appreciate your support so much. And
thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Ciao.